you knock out like 3 or 4 pressing exercises in a row. Now that's just kind of what you're used to at this point. But have you ever tried in the past, I'm curious, where you alternate like a push and then a pull and then a push, so that way you get the rest in between the exercises? Like I know, for example, someone like Matt Ogus, we're going way back now to era 2011, 2012, where it was like the upper lower and he was doing like a push exercise, then a pull, then a push, versus like combining 2 push exercises back to back, which arguably could be, as far as if that's your concern, loads, you might get a bit of a break where you might be able to handle more load if you do the pressing on the third exercise with a pull in between. I'm just curious if you've ever tried that.
Yeah, I've done like upper lower splits before with a similar approach to that. So I have tried that out before. I mean, can I say I really saw more improvements? I really don't know. I really can't say one or the other.
Okay. So then as far as like just knocking out pressing exercise back to back didn't really make much of a difference one way versus the other, as far as being able to handle more load or feeling more recovered acutely.
Well, obviously, if you're doing a press right after another press, there's probably going to be some carryover there. And, for me, like, for example, doing a low incline press and then like a high incline press, I mean, they're different angles. I mean, yeah, they're hitting similar body parts, but I don't feel like personally, it was detrimental by any means. I don't mind doing something like that where I'm hitting different angles back to back, with pressing. And for me too, I think honestly, I don't think I enjoy doing the upper lower approach as much. Honestly, I like pairing those protagonistic muscles together, like chest, shoulders, triceps. It's just more enjoyable for me to train that way as well, instead of doing a back movement and then a chest movement. I've done it before, but just not quite as enjoyable.
Nice. Yeah, that's important, right? As far as your body parts are concerned, any areas where you're trying to bring up more than others? Because you're obviously hitting legs kind of 1.5 times per week, you can say, right? With the extra back and glutes day where you're kind of hitting the posterior side of things. But is that because of a fatigue standpoint more than a development standpoint? Or are your legs just at a point where they're good, you don't need the extra day, like as far as the push and the pull is concerned, like the chest, shoulder, triceps, and then the back and biceps?
Well, I think part of the rationale for the split was, to manage like the lower back loading. And then, also for me, bringing up my glutes and hamstrings. Those are body parts that, it's funny now, recently I've posted these glute pictures, which in the past, I never did that before, but it was because I didn't have glutes to show there. So, there's a lot of improvements were made in those body parts. And I think part of that was just because of the emphasis with, the setup we had where, I was hitting, just emphasizing hamstrings a little bit more and glutes a little bit more. And I think with the quads, with AJ's like rationale there, there's so much systemic fatigue you can get from doing these hard sets of quad work that to add them in twice a week, is likely to take away from something else. So, that's really, in a way, the rationale there for just hitting quads 1 time a week, because, with the approach we're taking, if we're taking sets all the way there, man, if you're trying to do quads twice a week with that approach, man, it's just very systemically demanding. In my case, I think the bigger emphasis has been to bring up the glutes and hamstrings. And also with this approach, I've really managed like lower back fatigue a lot better than I used to in the past, when I was a bit more careless with the setup, where I would load the lower back so much more frequently, during a week. But now it's been managed so much more. And I think this helped a lot during the prep. I think, this setup, being more mindful of training volume and of exercise selection, but also just with the split, it carried over a lot to the actual prep, and being in a state where I'm not putting myself into a hole here with this contest prep.
Are you worried about any RPEs at this point? I know AJ's not a big fan of that. Or is it just kind of take it to the house, whatever you end up getting, you get?
Yeah, no RPE. Maybe if I'm doing a deload week, maybe I'll leave a rep in the tank, whereas maybe on a normal week I wouldn't for a movement. So something like that. And